Okay, perfect. I will get us rolling. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the 5Marks podcast for the first time in a very long time. I am Mark number one, Mr. Emmet and Carmo, joined as always by Martin's beautiful dancing partner, Mark numero three, I think, Mr. David Carmody. How are you doing, man?
How are you doing, everybody? Welcome back to another week.
And we are joined today by a very special guest, the MVP of Irish wrestling, living his beautiful life. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by none other than Mr. LJ Cleary. Sir, how are you doing on this beautiful morning?
I'm fantastic. I am awake, anyway, this morning, and really happy to be on. That was some introduction as well. You sounded like every ring announcer the last 6 months when they ask me, how do you want to be introduced? And I tell them, and they're always like, two things. I'm like, yeah, two things.
I've watched enough, over the last 6 months and starting to follow OTT. I was like, I'm follow suit with this and keep the trend going. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, LJ, we're going to start the way we always start. And that is, what is your first wrestling memory?
My first, I probably have the fairly kind of cliche answer to some of these things. Like regarding wrestling being in my life, it's kind of just been there for as long as I can remember. I do have a vivid memory of waking up early on a weekend. So I grew up in a flat in the Liberties in Dublin, and I remember going out into the sitting room and just seeing Brock Lesnar's face. I always remember seeing Lesnar's head, and I thought he was terrifying looking. I always remember that. I thought he was really, really scary. So I remember that. Then the next thing I can remember is a weird one. I remember seeing Shawn Michaels in the NWO t-shirt, which is a very strange one. That's one that sticks out. My ma always tells me that she remembers me sitting watching Cena's debut. She says she remembers that, which is funny because Cena would be like my childhood hero, one of my favorite wrestlers ever. So the fact that I was watching that, so they were kind of my first memories. Then I would say it's around 04 to 05 when I really remembered it becoming a thing that I understood I was watching. Because when I was 2002, 2003, I was 3, 4. I was watching stuff, but I didn't really know what it was. And then I say it would be around Batista, Triple H, kind of coming to to head at Mania. And then once Cena and Batista won the titles in 2021, that's when I remember being all right, I know what this is, and I'm obsessed.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was a great time to get into it too, I suppose, with the new kind of generation coming through and that ruthless aggression.
Yeah, that's that's my era, completely. I'm a ruthless aggression kid, way over the Attitude Era for me and anything else.
Yeah. And did you ever get to any shows, I suppose, with Dublin being a hotspot for live shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that I've been to I don't know, in the two digits, of shows in the Point, the O2, the Cherry Arena. The first one I ever went to was in November 2005. I remember because it was Eddie had just passed away. I always remember they did a moment of silence at it, and again I could kind of understand what was going on, but also not really at that point, and I always remember the main event. There was some card on that show. The two matches I remember was Cena and Triple H in a street fight, and Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels wrestled on it, which is crazy. Crazy that I saw that live, but I was 6. I was in the front row. I have camcorder footage of that somewhere that I must find.
That's absolutely mad. I was actually out there a year before, and I got to see Shawn Michaels, Triple H, which is just it's insane that they were kind of putting on those kind of caliber matches at just a house show in Dublin. Yeah, it's a bit mad. But I suppose, when did you kind of decide then that wrestling is what you want to do?
So I think I always knew watching. I was too obsessed as a kid. Obviously everyone has the thing that they love, but really wrestling from that point, I said from about 2005, and then especially by I'd say maybe 2007 rolls around. I'm really good with dates, years, only with wrestling though. Anything else school and college, I was useless with memory. But I remember especially around 2007, around WrestleMania 23 time, again, I'm so in at that point. I'm it's genuinely, the way we are, it's my life, it's all I think about. And I never had a break. You know, a lot of people like take breaks. I've never ever stopped watching. Like, it's never been a point where I haven't thought, like, since the day I got into it, since that day I saw Brock Lesnar's face and was like, this is terrifying. Like, it's never not been something I didn't think about. So I think I always knew it was the thing I wanted to do. I did have a little bit when I was younger of I don't know, maybe I'd be a bit too small, or I don't know how this would really work. And for me, the thing that really changed it was I read Jericho's first book, which that like I remember finishing that book and being like, right, if he can do it, the way he's described this journey as someone who is, I know Jericho's not small, but like, you know, he's was smaller than
Yeah.
you know the Attitude Era guys and stuff, and around the 90s, like, you know, when he's in WCW with Goldberg. I was like, if he can do it like this, and it was really, he essentially did it all on just like traveling the world and making a name for himself. I was like, I can do it. So I'd say, when did I read Jericho's book? So I lived in Spain for 4 years. I lived in Spain from 2008 to 2012, and I read Jericho's book while I was there. And then I always remember I watched Mania 28 about 2 weeks before I moved back home, and I remember watching Mania 28, and I was like, right, like, I'm gonna be a wrestler, like, I'm gonna do this when I go home. So I got home, and at the time, the age has gone up now. You have to be a bit older to start, but at the time, you could start at 14 in Fight Factory. But I was like 13, so I had to wait a year. But then I remember I still went down like a month before. I remember my birthday's in March. It was like a couple of days ago, and I was like, right, I'll wait till I'm 14, and then I got home one Saturday, February 2013, and my mom was like, "Oh, we called the wrestling school. Like, we're gonna bring you down tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh, Jesus, okay, all right." So this is it. This is it starting. And so I actually started at 13.
Absolutely. And was it kind of a bit of nervousness kind of going into it, or was it just pure excitement, like ready to go?
I'd say I was only ever like, I had the normal nervousness to start something new on that first day.
Yeah.
Then there was different types of nervous that came, like, you know, as your training went on. But that was within training. Then there was never a nervousness of like, oh, going. Once I went, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is what I'm meant to do.
Absolutely. And how did you find your early days of training? Like, was it kind of tough? Was there ever that time of like, I don't know if I can do this, or was it just, this is what I'm doing?
I can say I've never had a time where I thought, I don't know if I can do this, but like, it was tough. Like, I can especially like, and again, it's weird me saying this, like, I'm only 24, and like, it's weird me saying like, oh, you know, like, back then, like, it was 10 years ago now, like, oh,
Yeah.
but it definitely was a bit harder when I started. Like, just there was a different kind of and I think it's because like the scene and stuff in Ireland wasn't really a thing, that I don't know, like, I can tell you, I remember especially at 13, 14, like, and I'm not massive now, but I'm definitely bigger than I was when I started wrestling. I was the skinniest kid ever, and I remember going down to the gym in Bray. It used to be in Bray, Fight Factory, and there would be days where we could easily do like 300 squats, 300 to 500 squats, like a lot of push-ups, and I had no muscle on my body either at that time. Like, you know, that would be tough now, but I could definitely get through it, like, because I've conditioned my body to do it. So that part of training, the fitness aspect of it, was definitely hard, because again, I was like a kid, like, I hadn't like exercised ever in my life. Obviously I had to build that up. But to be honest, regarding like, it's strange how I feel like I was way less fearful of like getting hurt back then. You know, like, we learn how to bump and stuff, and I was just like, all right, yeah, this is just what you do. Like, and I got down the and because training was like, you know, the only form of wrestling I had. Now it's like, now I wrestle every day, whether it's training or a show or something. Like, and when I started, it was only once. I'd only go once a week for a couple of months. Like, I would be absolutely wrecking myself, but like out of my own accord, because I was like, well, this is what I do.
Absolutely. Look, what you said there about bumping, and obviously, like, bumping is a major thing talked about when you take your first bump, and like, how does it feel and stuff like that. We've heard a lot of times that the ropes are worse. Is that true?
The ropes are very hard. Yeah, I don't, for me, ever remember being like that messed up by them though, and that's the thing a lot of people do say. But that's what I guess, like, it is, as much as like, I'm grateful that I started at 13, but I think now the age across the board is like 16, which is better. Like, you know, I can't lie and say it is better. I'm glad I didn't have to be 16, but for the general, like, you know, people getting hurt and stuff. But the ropes, yeah, they do hurt. Like, I'm not saying they don't hurt. They wouldn't hurt me now. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I never got them that bad. For me, it was things like push-ups and stuff. Like, oh my God, like they are what killed me, because like I just couldn't fathom, like I couldn't understand like using these muscles in my body that I've never used before.
Absolutely. And I suppose you roll into your first match then. I think it was around the 2014 kind of time, which I hated with 5 Factor as well. What was it like just even, I suppose, preparing for that match, let alone actually wrestling?
Yeah, it was crazy. So I think it was nearly a year to the day it started. So it was about a year after I started. And regarding like preparing, it was strange because like I didn't really know or understand for a long time like what like doing a show was. You know, I didn't understand that there was smaller shows. Even though I'd been to a few, I didn't understand there were smaller shows. I really didn't understand the process, to be honest, of a wrestling school. I thought, okay, what do I do? Do I come here for a few years and then does somebody come in and like decide who they want to take to America? You know, I really didn't get what the process was. So when it came, and I'd say like, you know, in a good way, in a bad way, the shows back then, so that was 2014, were a lot more. So in a bad way, you know, they weren't as advertised. Like, people didn't really know about them, right? So my debut was at a 5 Factor show in Wicklow, where, you know, the card was probably decided on the day of what it was, which now that in a way is a good thing as well, because it leaves it really makes sure that like the wrestlers are sharp to be able to just on the day, you know, go into their match and do it as best as they can. Sometimes having too much preparation can hurt some people. But then obviously now it's a whole thing of like, but you want people in the door, you want to advertise, and you know, it definitely is better now, but there's a little bit of that element there that like was quite exciting. So because of that though, because I didn't really get what they were, I remember being nervous to go out in front of the crowd, but I was just like, I'd done so many training matches. So I don't know, like we do training matches in training, which is just basically like, okay, like you two go have like take a couple minutes, talk about a match and then do it. I'd done so many, you know, especially when I started, we used to do them a lot, that I was just like, okay, so I'm just kind of doing a training match. That's all I had in my head. Like, I'm just doing a training match in front of people. And also my debut, I wear a mask, right? So I wear like the smallest Rey Mysterio mask ever, right? And my hair's long now. It wasn't as long then, but it was still like, you know, kind of the same style. And I can tell you like for a fact that I couldn't see for 90% of the match, because the second the mask moved, my hair just goes all in my face and I can't see it all for my debut. So I actually couldn't see for most of it, which is funny enough. But yeah, I had the normal nervousness, but there was an element of like, oh, this is just a normal match. The more I wrestled early, I would get more nervous, because then I started to understand like, oh, like this is a process of like, maybe I do well on this show and that leads to another show. But at the start, I didn't really get it. So I was just like, oh, I'm just going to go out and do what I do in training in front of people. Yeah.
Was it kind of, I suppose, a sense of relief though to have just your first match done, that it's like, right, this is done now, I have this out of the way, I can kind of start moving forward?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Like once you get your first one done, it's like, okay, do we now get the ball rolling? And that was, I guess, a bit of the again, it's kind of similar to what I said about the cards being done on the day, a little bit to its detriment, but also there's positive to it. That I would say my first couple of years, so from really like 2013 to 2017, I probably only had maybe like, well, not only like at the time this was a lot, I probably only had maybe like 20 matches, which at the, you know, could be, if I was having that now, like it would absolutely like kill me. Like it would frustrate me that like it's too stop start. You know, maybe I'd do like one month, one another month, and then go like 6 months, and then I'd have another.
Yeah.
Not that it mattered too much at the time, because again, the scene just wasn't what it is now. Where that was good for me was that I really kind of think, especially back in 5 Factor and Bray, myself and Michael May, who isn't really wrestling anymore, but like he wrestled a lot on OTT, like kind of pre-pandemic, and Lyra Valkyria, my girlfriend, like, you know, we all were kind of there at the same time, and because there wasn't so many shows, like we really fell in love with training more than anything before the shows. So now I understand when new people join, like, there's like 4, 5, 6 shows a month in just Ireland. Like, it's insane. So, that's kind of always what they're chasing. So to answer your question about, like, was I happy to get it out the way? Like, in a way it was good, and then it got a little bit, as I got older, frustrating to be like, oh, I'm not doing this consistently enough, until then it was like someone snapped their fingers and then there was just like a million shows on in Ireland all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose I just want to kind of skip on then a little bit to like 2017, which I know is a bit of a jump, but you actually won the Irish Junior Heavyweight title for Fight Factory. How was that, I suppose, just even getting your first title?
Yeah, so I won that on my 17th birthday. Funny enough, that was on my 17th birthday. I'm the youngest Irish Junior Heavyweight champion ever. Was the longest reigning until Fabio he's now the longest reigning, which fair enough. It was amazing because it was absolutely incredible. That it's like winning your first championship of wrestling. Well, it's one of these things that, like I said, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, and you kind of have these little goals in your head. Okay, maybe I'll have a match, maybe I'll wrestle this many times, and to win a championship, and especially for me, because Fight Factory is my home. That those titles are essentially a badge of like the hard work. Like, you've earned this. And at that point, I really felt that I'd had, and so it was very very validating to get that from my coach and my peers, to be looked at as the one to essentially represent the brand, represent the club. No, it was incredible. I'll always have a special place in my heart for that title, because it's my first.
Absolutely. We actually talked to Sammy D last week, and he said that when he won the title, like, he was still in school at the time. So like, going into following that to school, like, you're a champion. You know, that kind of way. Was it the same kind of situation for you? Was it kind of like, what are we doing here? I'm a wrestling champion. Like,
yeah, it was a bit mad. Like, I was in school as well. It was 2017, so I had like a year. I can't remember really the time. I had about a year left or something. At that point, yeah, it was mad, because obviously, like, all my mates are saying it, like, and they kind of understand, and some of them kind of get it, and some of them are like, what are you doing? Like, I don't get this at all. Essentially, as weird as it is, and this might sound mad, especially at that time, like, that point, I'm still not wrestling like super often, right? But it kind of taught me the first sense of of a come down, of like realizing, all right, it's not just this every day now, because on Saturday was my birthday. It was a Saturday or Sunday was my birthday. Won the Irish Junior Heavyweight title, which to me at that time was the biggest thing I could possibly do in wrestling, right? Because again, I've been just in Fight Factory, and that was the top prize. Oh my god, like, I feel like I've done it. Like, to me at the time, I main evented WrestleMania, and then I was just in school. And it kind of first taught me that, like, oh, like, I'm just back in school now. This isn't. It's not like this is it, and I'm off now. Now someone's gonna come and pluck me and take me to America. But yeah, it was strange at the time. I always remember as well. So we train on Fight Factory. We train on Fight Factories on Tuesdays, and I always really I didn't live too far away from the gym in Bray. So I used to always bring, and it's because I loved it and I wanted to use it. I used to always bring the title with me on Tuesdays. So when I go to school on Tuesdays, I'd have it in my bag, cause I'd have a PE bag anyway, with so I'd always have it with me. And then I remember one day they were like, my mates, oh, like, can we see it? And that was pretty cool, showing people in school.
Absolutely. And I suppose moving on then to like 2018. 2018 is when you really kind of start kicking off. Like, you were working every Monday, in out. And even like, I wrote down some promotions, like you've OTT, Fight Factory, CCW, Phoenix, TNT, FCP, PWS. Like, how was that just even towards the year, just like working all over, I suppose, from the year prior of only working a handful of shows?
Yeah, 2018 really was kind of that year where everything kind of just started. I didn't really feel like it blew up yet, but like, the busyness definitely picked up, and it was like, it was a big. I feel like I was very prepared though. Again, like, at that point, I'd been training 2, 3 to 4 times a week every week since I started. I was really at that point. I was just waiting. I was waiting for that to happen. And then the idea of being able to wrestle in other countries as well was very appealing to me. Like that became something I kind of like craved. Like once I got it once, I really wanted the idea of like, oh yeah, wrestling everywhere. At that point, I think 2018, am I still in school? Maybe I'm in college. I think I'm in college at that point then. So I'm still not like full time yet. It's what I am now. But yeah, it was incredible because, and you know what, it started for me. It's funny that like, you know, on Saturday, I'm wrestling for the GN title at the stadium because for me it was really having the GN title the first time around that kind of got me in that position, because it started with I remember TNT wanted the title defended on their shows, and Jordan Devlin and JD McDonough had put in a word for me if in some other promotions as well, so that's what kind of got the ball rolling. So having the GN title gave me that first kind of boost, and it's just full circle that like I'm wrestling for it again on Saturday, and what's changed in the last like 5 years. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Like even I was just going to bring up there, like More Than Hype, obviously kicked in obviously early 2018. Obviously, even the formation of that and working with those lads for like the following like 2 years, and you wrestled all over the world as well. You wrestled throughout Europe and obviously the UK as well.
Yeah, so with More Than Hype, it was we got put together because there was another faction in OTT, Legit 100, that got put together, and they essentially needed like a faction to rival them. We wasn't really meant to be anything at the start. We were meant to be done like maybe 3 months, but we were very like we kind of knew we had something good. We knew we had a better kind of rapport about us than the other faction, and it was nothing against them. It was just like they were all like acquaintances, but they weren't really like close mates. We were, so we knew we had a really good thing. So once we were able to essentially cling on for a while and not get broken up and prove that no, like what we had was something special, yeah, we really we ran with it everywhere up until the pandemic.
Absolutely, and as you just mentioned there, like that was at Contenders. I've written down 6, but at Contender 7, then you obviously won the GN title against Martina.
That'll be exactly 5 years to the date, I think, of the stadium this Saturday. I think so. Like it's exactly, I think March 18th. It was the day after Paddy's Day. Yeah.
That's mad. Yeah. This one's coming up then to what we have coming on, which we'll get into a bit later on. How was it just even winning the GN title, and I suppose mixing it up with Martina, who's obviously a legend in the business, even at that stage?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was a real, again, kind of like I said about the Irish Junior Heavyweight title, and I guess it's how I look at like championships of wrestling. It was a real badge of honor, especially at that time, because we were all still quote, you know, like contenders, not really been on many of the main shows yet, and like, you know, I kind of only realized after, I was like, well, I'm probably going to be on like nearly every main show now. Like I have one of the titles. Again, I'm working with Martina. Has always been one of my favorite people to wrestle. I think it's strange. Like I think upon looking, like it doesn't really seem like we would click. Like the style of wrestle doesn't really seem like we would mesh well. But you know, as you know, opposites attract, that I think we really do in ring and mentally. Whenever we speak about wrestling, like I think we're kind of thinking about it the same way. I've had some of my favorite matches with Martina, and then so yeah, to win it from her, who at that point and now is a pillar of OTT. Like she's one of the, you know, you could have your Mount Rushmore of OTT. Like I'm sure like you're gonna put Martina on there. She's essentially like, you know, the main gimmick people will think of when they think of the promotion. To win it from her in the Ringside Club, where we'd start contenders, going into this year where I could really see in 2018, I was like kind of looking forward at like some of the people that are getting brought in for these shows are ridiculous. Obviously at that point, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and all, and Cody had already been there. So I'm like, so now I'm going to be the champion, one of the champions of this promotion. Like it was bizarre.
How was that even? Like I was seeing all the people kind of coming into OTT and then actually getting to meet them and watch them wrestle, and kind of, I suppose, did you get to learn off them as well as they were wrestling or as they were backstage?
Yeah, so the Kenny Omega Stadium show was the last OTT show I paid in to see. So like I paid into OTT at the start, which is a fan. That was the last one I paid into. But 100%, one of the biggest parts of learning as a wrestler, and for me, like I would be like, I consider myself like, you know, I ask a lot of questions. Like I will have no problem going up to somebody and picking their brain. Obviously, you know, I'm respectful. I'll pick the right time. I'm not going to bombard somebody with questions. But even within the last year, like some of the people that have been on, like the amount of conversations I'll have with people, like a big Damo. I talked a lot with Sky Tuhai when he was, you know, kind of in and out over the year. It was because obviously it kind of starts with the idea of talking. It kind of starts with a bit of like a, you know, like we're all fans. I'm like, wow, like, you know, it's very cool that this person is in our locker room. The same way when Carlito was over, you know, like I told my mom like, oh, Carlito's on the show today, and like she knew who I was talking about because she would watch wrestling with me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I spend a good while talking to him. It's really that's the invaluable stuff. Like, you know, you can. And I'm all for, like, you know, everyone should be training as hard as they can, but you can physically train as much as you want, but like, you know, there's only certain bits of information you can get directly off somebody that are gonna stick with you. And like for me, some of the people I've got to wrestle, especially in 2022, like what I took from them was, again, I couldn't learn in a wrestling school. You know, it's just from speaking to them, that the stuff has really stuck with me.
Absolutely. We'll get to more of that stuff again in a couple of minutes, but I just want to move on just a little bit. So obviously 2022 kind of came around. And obviously you actually wrestled between like January 2022 and March 22, I think like 20 odd times, like you were wrestling all over the world. And then I know you were due to obviously face Pac, I believe it was at Scrappermania, and then COVID.
Oh, COVID, huh? Yeah. What a rotten time.
Yeah. Like, how was that? Even, I suppose, just getting the announcements that like everywhere was shutting down, you can't go training, you can't wrestle. It obviously hurt, you know, that kind of way, like especially when you have a big match against Pac coming up.
Yeah. So, where are we? March 14 now. So, this today would have been Scrappermania 6, 3 years ago. The one I was meant to wrestle Pac on would have been today. So March 12th was my birthday. So I woke up on my 21st birthday to like, everything's getting shut down. Everything was getting shut down. Yeah, I'll never forget that. I went into college. This was my last day, like fully being in college, and I remember being in a class, like whatever it was, a graphic design, and they were like, "Yeah, like we're done. Like today, you know, go home." And I was like, I kept really holding on hope, like, oh no, like they'll just like, you know, maybe they'll kick it in Monday, like let the stadium go ahead, and then the announcement went out, yeah, it's over. So at the start, I was quite instantly like was trying to tell myself, I would consider myself quite a positive person. I was like, oh well, look, it's there's wars happening to like people in the world here. Obviously, this is like the biggest match I was meant to have, but you know, I'm in like my family's healthy, I'm healthy, so I'll just, you know, I was trying to justify it essentially, like, you know, that I wasn't upset about it is the best way I can describe it. Obviously, like, yes, there was like part of me that was. So for a good few months, I was like, oh, you know, it was okay. And then it was as the months went on, I remember going on, you know, like, you remember these like stupid lockdown walks where you just go on walks for ages because you have nothing to do. I always remember like on one of the walks, like just like on shuffle, like Pac's music came on, and that's when I was like, oh, I was really like, damn, like that would have been incredible. But there's a couple of things I will like say that I got from COVID. You know, obviously, you know, trying to look at the positives in a horrible situation. I was able to finish college, so I did feel like with the rate I was going at in 2020, which was really good. You know, like I was moving up. That, you know, I can't say for sure. I feel like maybe an opportunity would have came along that I would have obviously taken and probably left college behind, which definitely would not have been the best. Now, when I look back at it, would have not have been the best idea, and it would have probably caused a bit of conflict at home as well, because the reason I was able to like do so well in wrestling, or do so well and pursue it kind of full time even while I was in college, was I always remember when I started college, I wasn't wrestling all the time, but I was starting to get frequent enough, and I remember my parents being like, well, you know, you might need to get a job. And I was like, oh, you know, but like if I get a job, like I need to train. I can't take these days off. And they were like, well, if you do well in college, like very well, we will support you to wrestling for the next 4 years. So they did that, and like that's why I was able to, you know, get to the level I'm at regarding making it as a job. So I think if COVID didn't happen, I feel like that could have maybe came to head. That was just me assuming. but it didn't. And also, I definitely came out genuinely like probably my most like mentally strong ever regarding wrestling. Again, I've always had a positive attitude anyway, but I can tell you for a fact that, and I understand why other people had these thoughts, but I just never did. I never had one day where I was like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I don't want to do this because things aren't. I was like, no. Every single day I was watching it, studying it, because I knew I just kept telling myself the world is on pause right now. I was like, it's like we're on pause. Yes, time is going by, we can't stop the time, but it will come back. And I was like, when this comes back, like I just kept saying, I am going to be the most ready in Ireland. Like, I'm going to be the one that's ready to get like shot out the cannon. And I just kept telling myself this match with Pac is going to happen. And then it just all worked out, because it was all the elements of when it happened were much better than the first time it was meant to happen. Absolutely. It was devastating, to be honest. The few years of COVID, it was not being able to train is what killed me the most. And again, I think that's where that the thing I spoke about earlier about falling in love with training first, really, I could really see that when we opened back up in 5Factor, I remember, for a couple months in 2020, when it was like, remember that summer where it was like okay for a bit, and then we went back into lockdown. We opened back up, but the numbers were low, and I was like, what? I couldn't really kind of wrap my head around it. Not low, like there was still, you're kind of not like you're you could be getting like 10 to 12 people a session, and it was like, I remember someone being like, oh, there's no shows on, we've nothing to work towards. And again, I guess that was just a timing of like when somebody joined, as opposed to when I started, when it was like, well, like, when I started, though, it was just all about training. It was a training that was the hardest thing to go without. So once that opened, once you're able to get back training, it was right back to it.
Absolutely. And I suppose even when 2021 kind of kicked in and we came into the kind of the dry months, you just went straight back to it. Like, you were over in ICW, you were over in the UK. I believe it was only like a month or two after everything came back, when you had your first match in OTT again. Like, how was that? I suppose, was it just pure relief of like, I can go do what I want to do again, I can wrestle again?
Yeah. Relief is the best way to describe it. No philosophical answer for this. It was just unbelievable to be back. That's all I wanted. I needed just to be back doing what I love. I know that's how a lot of people felt as well, but especially when I started flying again. In 2019, I flew like 70 something times to like whatever it was, 10 in 2020, and then by 2021, I remember I got it back up to like 35, and I was like, this is pretty good going, especially for this. It's only really the last 5 months or 6 months of the year. Yeah, it was unreal.
That's average, and I suppose then hitting into OTT, you had the 7th-year anniversary, which in Dublin you fought Mark Haskins for the OTT World Title. Was that like the opportunity alone must have been massive? I suppose, especially coming out of COVID, as you said, when you were on such a big run, to still get that World Title.
Yeah, I felt that did come as well, because I really did make sure I was the most ready. I knew I was like obviously before pre-pandemic, being an MTH, we kind of had I think we wanted to be like the best faction like in European wrestling and stuff. So then when I kind of realized, okay, it's gonna be me on my own now, I was like, well, I'm just gonna be the best wrestler. I was like, I'm certainly gonna be the best wrestler in Ireland, and then I'm gonna be the best in Europe as well. So I really made sure I was in the best position possible to do that regarding my wrestling and things like that. To be the main of like the first big show back was, again, I keep saying the words, like it was a badge of honor. Like the trust is being put in me to be able to do that, because if it fails, like it's on me then. I can't say what I just said to you and be like, oh no, I want to be the best, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, and then drop the ball. One thing that was very cool from that night, obviously working with Haskins and stuff was amazing, but one thing that was very cool was I remember walking back through the curtain after the match, and there's always wrestlers there like ready to go out and sell their merch. I am one of them. If I'm not on last, like I will be like ready to go. And Ospreay was standing there, and it was really cool because he just kind of gave me a nod, like, oh, like, y'all good, like, and just out of a respect thing that you would when you see a wrestler come back. And I just thought, and I kind of regret not saying it to him. I could get the chance to say it to him, but I kind of regret not saying it in the moment, that he was in the main event of the first OTT I paid into, And I was like, I know I'm walking back to the curtain, and he's standing there when I was in the main event. It was a really cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, I suppose then we kind of run on to Scrappermania, which obviously you had the match with Swerve, Robbie X, and Michael Oku. That was actually my first Scrappermania show.
Oh, really? So that would have been the first match.
Main event, like it was, my opinion, match of the night, without doubt, like absolute match of the night. How was it, I suppose, working with Swerve? You've obviously worked with Michael Oku and Robbie X before. And tell me about that Canadian Death Destroyer off the shoulders.
It was fantastic working with Swerve. I'd actually had wrestled Swerve Strickland, before in 2018 on an OTT Contenders. We were in a tag match, and he was amazing. Then my first stadium show as well, I tagged with him as well in a weird multi-man match. Obviously, completely like next level talent in ring. One of the coolest wrestlers ever, for sure. Like definitely one of those, like, this is just natural cool you can't really teach. Like when he struts out to ain't nobody, like it's unbelievable. But what really made it was, so that show was on a Saturday. I remember Thursday morning I wake up and he just got signed to AEW, and I was like, all right, now the implications of this match now are way bigger, because it was already class because he was coming off a WWE run, but now like he literally just signed to AEW this week, and then obviously Robbie X and Michael Oku are incredible people. I would wrestle a lot more frequent. They're absolutely unbelievable, great people, great wrestlers. I would gladly wrestle both of those, for the rest of my life. That whole day, just an incredible full circle moment as well, because that was on the 12th of March, which was on my 23rd birthday, exactly 2 years to the day that the Pac match got cancelled. So that was to be back in the stadium, was amazing. It really was. Like, I remember when that one finished, I remember it was a real, like, wow, it really didn't, like, as I was always so, like I said, in lockdown, it's going to come back, like, and I'll be ready. So I really felt like I didn't know I'd get back there, but I kind of looking at the other people, it was like they didn't think it would happen. So it was really nice to be able to see that. And regarding that Destroyer, that was just an idea I came in with. And I tell you, talking about how good the likes of Robbie X are, there's probably no one else, maybe Michael Oku. There's no one probably other than them two that I would trust to pull off something like that, is the best way I can describe it. Robbie X is literally like an alien. Like, he can just do anything.
Yeah, as I said, like, that was my first Scrappermania, and to walk into a match like that was just insane. But even for you, like, I suppose Dublin is obviously your hometown in OTT, whatever, but like, the ovation for you was insane.
Oh, it was
like, Swerve is obviously there, and Swerve is obviously a mainstream wrestler and whatever else. But like, you had the entire crowd.
Yeah, I feel like it's what I kind of have right now, and it's a really nice feeling that, obviously I'm kind of pushing the MVP of Irish wrestling thing, and it's a beautiful life, and it's because I feel like that I'm not a cocky person, but it's because I feel like it's real. I feel that it's very real, and I feel like the audience they believe that, like, they believe it with me, and they understand it because they've kind of been on this journey with me. They see me every show, and there's no show where, like, I will be outworked, and no matter what position, no matter what match I'm in or what, like, position I'm in on a card, because that doesn't just mean, like, who is, like, physically going to do the most. Like, sometimes it can be, like, just to play to a wrestling card. And I feel like that stadium show, the first one back, people had saw that since the first show back, that I was the most, like, ready. Like, I was the most, like, ready to go when I came back, and I feel like there was a real sense of, like, there is, like, this is our guy, and it's obviously an incredible feeling for me, because, again, I wrestling fan my whole life. I was paying into these stadium shows, and then to be walking out and getting a reaction like that, it was like, for both stadium shows last year, like, there was a real sense of that. It was incredible. Like, there's no, the feeling that I think, so I'm not a, I'm not a drinker or anything, right? Like, I'm, people always say to me, like, oh, you're straight edge. I'm like, well, I've never said that I'm straight edge, right? But, like, technically I am, right? But I won't say that, though. But there's no better high, like, or rush or feeling than like an ovation like that in wrestling. Like when you get those, like, and again, they're not often, because they can't be often, because if they were all the time, like they just get diluted. But like that stadium was definitely one. I remember walking out, and it was like, I think I was the first person to walk out as well of that whole show, and to be like to be the first person out on the first stadium back was incredible.
Absolutely. And I suppose heading into kind of a couple of months later, as we talked about earlier, chatting to Scotty Tuhati, who obviously wrestled Scotty Tuhati down in Phoenix, which I believe down in Cork. Again, another massive match, another big time wrestler. How was that?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I been on against Scotty, had been over in the UK and Ireland. Again, being on shows with these people, already mind blown. Like I'll make sure I'm standing in the crowd when these people make their entrance, because I want to watch it, I want to feel it, I want to hear their entrance music when they walk out. Scotty had been, nothing but helpful. Just when we were chatting and stuff, and then it came around that it worked out that he was over in the UK again to come to Cork, and in Cork is one of the only places at the time that I'd was playing like a bad guy. And you want to be if you're asking Sky to high now, like you want to be a bad guy as well, it just works better. But he's someone that we did a seminar with him as well, and it was just one where we just spoke, because again he made like the point about himself. He was like, you're going to learn more from talking to me than me, what he was like, what am I going to get in the ring and show you how to do, other than like the worm, like what so I think wrestling him was a big, it's really wrestling kind of like, let's call them like the quote, like ex-WWE guys, it's a different type of learning regarding, more like of a TV, there's a TV aspect to it. There's a thing about he obviously has a very good understanding of and control over an audience. So being in the ring while he was making his entrance was probably like the most I learned from him, because I was just observing what is he doing, look how long he's taking and stuff. Obviously, when you don't have time constraints, it's a bit easier. But it was incredible. He's one of the people I'm most grateful that I've got to wrestle. And now it's amazing that I could post a picture on Instagram and then Scotty Tuhati likes my photo. I'm like, this is mad. I was like, Instagram didn't even exist when he was on top,
Yeah, true. Yeah. Very true. And I suppose we head into Poetry Slam then, and finally the match happens. Cleary versus Pac.
Yeah.
And to make it even better, it was for the AEW All Atlantic Championship. When you found out it was even for the title, let alone that the match was happening, how was that?
Yeah, that's what I meant by I guess a positive from COVID. Like I said, I got a lot more mentally strong and understanding everything happens for a reason. And when I found out that was happening, and I was like, well, now it's for the title and it's going to be on AEW Dark. That wasn't going to happen the first time around, that if you had have asked me then, do you want to wait a year and a half for this? At the time I probably would have said no. I was like, I want to do it now. But I know in hindsight, that was the better option. I remember finding out because the show got announced in Dublin, and I was like, oh great, finally a Dublin venue. That was the struggle for a long time. And I just remember a lot of times if I haven't spoken to Joe in person, the matches just go up. A lot of times I don't really know what the matches are, or I have an idea from speaking to him. So when he messages me, it's always a little bit strange. So he messaged me and just said, have a killer match for you for Poetry Slam. And at this point, actually, I was over at the NXT UK Performance Center. I was doing I was there for 2 weeks, and I was just classic, what is it? And he was like, I'm just trying to finalize something, I should let you know tomorrow. But he was like, but trust me, it's a good one. And I do remember I was trying to think about it that day, and I couldn't. I was like, what? Who? I was like, what? I was trying to think of other than someone. I was like, okay. I was looking at the card and someone I hope I get to wrestle. Speedball was on the show, so I was like, maybe it's me and him. That would be a great match. And then I remember going on a walk that night around. It was in Canary Wharf in London, and I saw that Pac was in Rev Pro, and I was like, no. I was like, no, like there's no way. I saw it. I thought maybe it's possible, but I was like, I just don't know. I just had a feeling that it wasn't going to. And then the next day, he just sent me the graphic, nothing else, just the match graphic. And yeah, seeing that was like actually seeing it again was mind blowing. Like just like it was one of those things. Like I did really know what was going to happen though. I knew I was going to get it. It was just a matter of when.
When, yeah, absolutely. And I suppose talking about the match in itself, were you happy with it? Was it just like even just getting to work with him and learning off him, I suppose, and just the whole show itself? Like, how was that?
Yeah, very happy with the match. I think it's like definitely one of my best matches. Up till then, it was my best match. Very happy that it's out there online for people to watch. It's on AW Dark for life now. Like again, as growing up a wrestling fan, playing SmackDown vs Raw, it's very cool that like Taz is commentating one of my matches. Yeah, very happy with the match. Working with him was an absolute next level experience. The match did a lot for me in terms of like, there's always some things that there's some elements of performing that I feel like I was always kind of struggling with that are hard to fake. But being in the ring with him, and when he was making his entrance and stuff, there was so many real emotions because the match got legit taken away, that I felt like that night I kind of snapped into like a next level, and it brought me up to where I needed to go. And I feel like I haven't looked back since. So there's a lot of benefits to that, just to that match actually happening. And then just the actual like relief. I remember getting home that night because I wrestled Sky to High the next day. I was like, what a weekend, like Pac on Friday and Sky to High on Saturday. I remember getting home on the Friday night. I just had such a like it happened, like it's done now. Like all the way for everything. It was really incredible. So I'm very grateful for all of it being able to happen.
Absolutely. Did you find at any stage, just when you were kind of even standing in the ring and he was making his entrance, that you were just kind of like, this is actually happening?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When he walked out on the stage, I remember, because I was like, that's when that hit me. When he walked out and I saw him first, that's what I really got that.
Absolutely. And I suppose we head into the 7th-year anniversary then, the OTT anniversary, which came up by, I personally believe, your big match, which is obviously against Matt Cardona. And you obviously grew up as a Matt Cardona fan. You saw him in Dublin, obviously at the WWE live shows, as we talked about. And then bang, you're standing in the ring against Matt Cardona.
This is my biggest match I've ever had, and that is my best match I've ever had, 100%. So this, like, I can talk about this. I don't know if, like, obviously you guys can see, but like I looked to my left there, right, and I'm not joking. Like, been in my room for years. Like, I have like Zack Ryder headbands wrapped around my lamp. They've just been there for years. Like since I was a kid. I have hanging over like my bed, or sorry, it's over like just nearby like there's just a big pile of wrestling DVDs and books next to me. A Zack Ryder necklace and DVD that he signed at an autograph signing. Like so when he got announced, obviously, yeah, like, and there's a thing where, when people say, oh, I was a massive fan of this wrestling. No, like I was a massive fan, like obsessive fan. For me, my top 3 favorite wrestlers ever are Jericho, Cena, and Zack Ryder. Like they were my 3 guys. When he got announced, when I saw him on the poster, I was like, right, I have to get this. I was like this. I know, I don't book the shows. I don't understand the elements that Joe has to deal with. But I just went to him and I was like, let me pitch you an idea. It's like me and Cardona. And, he kind of laughed. I was like, look, I'm not just me saying, like, let me wrestle the biggest guy on the show. I explained, I showed him the clip of me catching the t-shirt. I was like, I've met this guy at autograph signs. I was like, I have all this merch. And that's what really, sold him on. I was like, there's an actual story here, like already built in, which is very hard to come by sometimes on indie wrestling, because we just wrestle good matches, which is great. So I went and got that. So early on, it was back in August, like we started like teasing it. Like I started doing a couple of his moves in matches, and obviously like I knew people would cop on. And then I went and got the promo made for the match, which I was really proud of. I think that was like my best like bit of like promotional work I'd ever like been. I didn't edit it, but like in putting together. And then we did the thing at the show just before the stadium where I officially called him out, and then like his promo came up on the screen. That was crazy. I remember standing in the ring like, what? I was like it was just, and he's like one of the smartest wrestlers I've ever met. Like he knows how to play into these things so well. Like he'd be replying to like fans' tweets about me and stuff, being like, who's this? Like I don't know who this Mark is, and stuff like that. I could talk about this whole thing like for hours. Like that match that day was, it's still so surreal. It kind of feels like a fever dream still happened. Like it's very rare that like things go absolutely perfect. You know, it's very rare that like things really get pulled off perfectly. And there's absolutely nothing I would change about that day. And I would be a wrestler that like I could have a fantastic match, but if I watch it back and there's maybe one thing there like I'm not happy with, it can ruin the match on me, which isn't healthy. But that's one that like I could watch that match back a million times and it's not going to do anything. You talk about standing in the ring with Pac, and there was that like, wow, it's actually happening. Like the one there for Cardona was, I was standing in the ring and he's doing a promo up on the stage and he starts doing like the intro to Z-Tron Island Story, and I was just, obviously I'm selling and acting all angry and stuff, but he's saying like LJ Cleary, you're not the broski of the week. And I tried to be the broski of the week, like I actually did, and now he's here like he's here telling my parents to F off, like who took me to meet him autograph signings. It was that day was like, it was the best night of my career by far. Best day, like people think I'm not exaggerating, probably the best day of my life. He was and is the smartest wrestler I've ever been in the ring with. Definitely like the most I've ever taken from a match, and just an example of to kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. Just an example of like how you should be, like whatever about, like I said, like learning lessons in the ring, but how you should be in a locker room when you have a status. He's someone that he has a status coming into a locker room like OTT, and like how he acted and stuff. He also really, like, I feel like I really gained from that match. It was the most, let's call it TV style match I'd ever had, and that was just from just listening to him, how he how things were put together, but also just listening like on simple directions and stuff. But yeah, I could talk about. Do you guys know about like what happened? What like the?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, would you talk to us about it?
Yeah. I don't. So like, essentially, like he's gonna win. I'd obviously have at that point, I'm getting like my actual dream match. Like again, my actual dream match. Like how often you actually get the wrestlers get to wrestle their favorite wrestlers, and the whole match is centered around me putting on the line timer, which I've been like reusing as a finisher, trying to get it on. I eventually get it on. In my head, he's about to go to the ropes. I'm about to just have maybe like, it's only another like 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and then I have a minute and he's in, and then he just taps, and I don't know he's gonna tap. Like I didn't like, and then now you can see in the video like there is a second or two where like my face changes to like, whoa, like what the F just happened. I kind of cop it fairly quickly. Okay, like in my head I'm like, obviously I didn't like hurt him. I know like I didn't do anything, so this obviously was meant to happen. And that reaction, that's the best reaction I've ever gotten in my life when he tapped. Like, because I don't think people, I didn't know he was going to do it, so I don't think anybody else had that feeling. That I feel like that was a match where people were like, it would be great if I won, but probably not. So then when I did, and then and then again, like celebrating, and then he pulls me down. We do the handshake and the hug, but then one of the coolest parts is he hands me the t-shirt from the match. So now in my room I have the t-shirt that I caught at the WWE show back in 2013, and next to it I have the t-shirt from the match. which is, again, you couldn't really write that stuff, like talking about things happening for a reason. Here's a smaller like side note to that clip that's used in the promo of me catching the t-shirt, right? So I had a version of that, a video of that, but it wasn't the best quality. It's from a really bad angle. And I was like, oh, like I would love to have proper footage of that. So 2 days before I went to film the promo for the match, I was just looking up online on YouTube, right? Like, how obscure is this? Like WWE Dublin 2013, highlights, like thinking there may be someone. And then I found a highlight video of the guy, behind me filming some of the show, and they have Zack Ryder's entrance, but it cuts. It cuts before he gets in the ring, and I was like, no. I was like, and then I seeked out the guy's information, messaged him on Instagram, was like, hey, this might sound a bit weird, but like, I'm that kid that's in front of you at the show in the Zack Ryder t-shirt. I'm about to wrestle him. I caught his t-shirt at that show. Is there any chance you have any footage of that? And then he messaged me like, yeah, I have all the footage from this show, and he sent it to me and has the clip. Like, that's where I feel like I'm in a simulation. Like, how is that meant to happen? Like, how did he have that? Like, it's too bizarre. And then the real icing on the cake for me for the whole day, and was after the match, I go and I say goodbye to my parents, who loved the show, and I literally hear like the bell ring for the main event. So like, I'm out at merch, like, all right, people are gonna float out here now. And then Matt Cardona tweets, just had one of my favorite matches ever with LJ Cleary, and that was, again, it's all a simulation, because that day isn't real. Like, I don't know, that day doesn't feel real that it happened. It all went too perfectly. Like, the fact that nothing in the slightest went wrong. But like, he put up a post the next day, and he kind of on his Instagram about the match, and there's a line in it that really sums it up perfectly. He says it's not about the moves, it's about the moments. Like, and he's like, and he thanks me and then tells everyone to F off again. And that was really it. Like, it was a real genuine moment, the best moment I've had in my life and in my career. And he taught me that that maybe, hopefully one day I'm in a position to give that to someone, and then to be able to create these moments in a match. See, like, I just went on like a 10-minute rant there about it. Like, I just like, I could talk about that match for days.
We'll have to bring you back on just to talk, just so.
Yeah, but like, exactly. I will always be extremely grateful for like what he did for me that day. As an actual hero. Like, I will always be very grateful.
100%. Like, I was actually in the second row at that show, and I can't even repeat what I said when you put him into the submission move, hoping for him to tap out. I can't repeat it on air. But look, I'm just going to pass it over to Emmet. I'm going to get Emmet to just talk a little bit about Hard Knocks and stuff like that. Emmet, take it away.
Yeah, just one quick note I want to make about that, just because of what you mentioned earlier about your parents, and like, with the line of profession that you're in, it is one of those things where parents would worry that, like, oh my God, do they want to be able to make a living off it and stuff. That must have been such a nice, like, bit of closure for your parents, like, especially like, finishing college through COVID.
Yeah.
Then to have that moment where, there's a couple of thousand inside the National Stadium.
Yeah.
After wrestling childhood hero, you go up there on camera with the big hug and everything like that. But like, for me now, because like, this is why I kind of let Carmo take the lead with this. So like, the way that we have the dynamic in the podcast, there's 5 of us. 2 of the lads are obsessive wrestling fans, 2 of us are lapsed, and one of them doesn't know anything about wrestling at all. Like, I would only have become aware of you back around kind of August time, just before the match and everything like that. But one thing that we talked about a little bit earlier is that how you are like the biggest babyface in Irish wrestling and everything like this. But one thing I found very interesting about the first time I would have gotten to see you wrestle live would have been the first Hard Knock show back in. Like,
oh, really?
Honestly, yeah. And it was so weird because, like, like talking to Carmo about you and everything like this, he's always like, proper 5-star caliber matches and everything like this. And then you come out, and again, with all this hype I've been told, like, biggest babyface, nice, wrestling. And you come out and you're just like, who the fuck are you? Like, this stuff. Yeah. I'm like, God. But the question I wanted to ask is, like, which do you have more fun with now? I mean, a decade nearly into your career. Do you have more fun being the good guy or more fun being the bad guy?
Definitely now the good guy, but when OTT Contender started, like, I was a bad guy, like, at the start, because I kind of had told myself we were all good wrestlers, right? Like, we were all, good wrestlers coming up, but like, I knew I had the strongest personality. Like, I know I have a very good heel personality to tap into if I need to. But it just came from me at the start. Like, I didn't really know what I was, so I just copied Jericho. I said Jericho's my favorite wrestler. I was just like, I'm just going to be like him until I kind of found my own thing. Now in saying that, like, you know, I say that, you know, now it's definitely being a good guy, because I feel like that is my bread and butter now. I feel like it's something that it's not forced again. Like, I feel like people are behind me, like people, there is that like, he's our guy kind of mentality. So I do enjoy every now and again getting to play a bad guy again in somewhere like Hard Knocks. It was actually, I remember coming up to that show, that's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, I haven't done this in ages. I haven't, so it was really fun. But I know I would probably be a better good guy.
I don't know, fair. And like one thing I wanted to ask you as well is because, like, again, because of how late in the day I've caught on to all this type of crack, was Martin was mentioning to me that you were over in the NXT in the training camp for 2 weeks before the shutdown and everything like that. We debate between the five of us all the time how much time we actually have left to watch you wrestle in Ireland. And like the thing about it is like you're going in now to, I think this is your ninth career wrestling, or your ninth year, sorry, wrestling now.
My 10th.
Your 10th, sorry, yeah. How long realistically do you think it's going to be before you go stateside? Because we talked to a lot of guys about this, and it just seems that like the trajectory that a lot of people in OTT and the Irish scene in general are going, it's like we're fearful as fans that there's going to be a massive shift in like the next 18 to 24 months, like, you know. But for you now, you've been like a bottle rocket the last like 18 months. So like, is that something you're looking at in the next 12 to 18 months, or how are you feeling about that? Like, would you be open to making that transition soon?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, I don't know. It's very hard to predict where, when in wrestling things can change so quickly. A pandemic could happen. Hopefully not. You know, and you know, exactly. You know, that really taught me as well. Though, like I thought in 2020 I was going up, and then it was right back down. So, to answer your question, though, yes, I feel, just personally, I could be wrong, that like I feel, you know, kind of ready for that next kind of step, I guess. What, you know, and I would imagine, I kind of do have there's a bit of a gut feeling in me, as weird as it sounds, and like I could be wrong, but there is part of me that's at these shows and stuff now, and I'm really kind of taking it in, because I don't know why though. You know, like I'll be completely honest, like there's no current sign of like a direction I'm going in. It's not something I'm not putting out there that like, oh, I can't say. But I don't know, there's a little part of me that's like, I really feel like I'm taking it all in now, because I'm kind of feeling like, oh, I could be gone soon, but I don't know why. Like that, I can't really. It's genuinely like a real gut feeling I have. So I am ready. I feel like I'm ready to, you know, I absolutely, like, you know, I've put absolutely everything into Irish wrestling. Like, I'm a coach in 3 different schools still currently as well across the week. It would be very hard when the time comes. It's going to be very tough to, like, you know, say goodbye, leave it behind. Like, that's going to be a sad, you know, like for me, like a very sad moment. But, you know, like everything, like, you know, when the time comes, it'll have to happen. You know, it'll have to happen. So then hopefully someone else in Ireland could take my role. But I don't think anyone's going to work as hard though.
Fair enough.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Look, we're heading into Scrappermania as in a couple of days. This interview actually comes out next week as of when we're talking. We're about 4 or 5 days away from Scrappermania. As you mentioned, the GN title, it's written into your history around the same kind of time of the year as always. You're fighting Danny Cross. How are you feeling for it? Are you all set for it? Are you going to go in and just smash him?
Yep. You know, just the buzz around the stadium days there's nothing like it. There's a different, you know, feeling in the air, because I can't get used to like wrestling in front of 2,000 people, can I? You know, like, it's not a thing that happens all the time. So like every time you walk out and see that crowd, it's a proper, the rush is different, you know. And to wrestle Danny Cross as well, who, you know, has been acting a bit of the bollocks whatever lately, but still, you know, one of the best in the he has become one of the best in Ireland, and, you know, I definitely have to give him that. He definitely ran with the ball post pandemic anyway, you know, where a lot of people dropped off. He was like, no, I'm going to take this, and has done absolutely incredible things. Wolverhampton on Friday in a match where Santino Morella is the referee, which, that's crazy. Like, you know, we were talking about those guys earlier to grow up and watch. That's one. And then a match I'm really looking forward to on Sunday in Belfast against Davy Richards. I cannot wait for that. Like, that's a match I'm very, very excited about. Very up my alley style of wrestling. But yeah, Saturday's the big one for the GN title. 3-time. Yeah, I'm going to become 3-time GN champion, beat Danny Cross.
Well, look, we absolutely look forward to it. But look, we know we're just running on time, so we're going to let you go. LJ, I can't thank you enough for absolutely coming on and doing this show with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thanks so much for having me, guys. I hope it was all good. And sorry that it took us a while It took me a while to make it work.
Not at all. Look, we'll definitely have you on again sometime in the future,
definitely, yeah.
just to go through the rest of it. But look, absolutely, thanks a million. We're going to pass it over to Emmet just to exit our show. But again, thank you.
Thank you.
You're a bad bastard now, Carmo. I normally don't.
Yeah.
But anyway, on behalf of the lads, this has been this week's episode of the 5Marks podcast. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we are ding, done.
Woo!
Oh, I hate that outro so fucking.
I know.